What we're talking about, well, let me ask you this, does truth contradict?
Yes.
Because we're talking about, because we're talking about truth presupposing the precondition for intelligibility. Now, would you agree that if we're dealing with intelligibility, what do you have to have to utilize intelligibility? Would it be a mind?
Yeah.
So what mind do you have that's a standard and plumb line that humanity can go to be able to justify rational? Would you agree rationality is just something that we can all basically agree on to have a common sensibility?
Yeah.
So
it's like a human construct, kind of.
there you go. But rationality actually proves that there's a plumb line outside of it that we have to appeal to for me to be able to say that you're irrational or you're illogical or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying, if it's not God, because truth doesn't contradict, so I'm talking about one reality that God makes for everybody, which means the truth doesn't contradict. That's how come I can tell you you're wrong. Or that's why a professor in the university can tell you you're wrong about a certain thing that all people know to be true. Okay? So I'm not saying we know everything, but I am saying there are some things that humans can know to be true. And that plumb line would be rationality, but that would defer to something that's greater, the rational giver.
I believe there's something greater, probably. But, I mean, is there any reason it has to be the Christian God? Or can it be
Absolutely, because that's the God you start with. It's not the God you reason to, he's the God you can't reason without. So he's the precondition for intelligibility. Now, if you have another precondition that, than God, the one true God that you already know exists, that I already know exists, everybody in the world already knows exists, then I would like to hear that precondition. Like if you say it's the flying spaghetti monster, I would like to know if that flying spaghetti monster is the precondition for intelligibility for you. And you would be surprised how most...
I think it could be any God, really. It could be, there just has to be a higher power, not necessarily a Christian one.
So you believe...
There has to be a higher power. But...
Well, what I'm talking about is absolute truth. So let's talk about truth. Okay. We talked about the precondition, and you're kind of divided on that, right? I mean, you're not gonna say it's the one true Christian God. So that's what I'm saying. In my worldview, that's the case. Okay. So let me ask you this: as we're talking about truth, is it impossible for the Christian God, so to speak, in your worldview, if he is true?
Yeah.
In my worldview, he is. Okay? So is it impossible for the Christian God to reveal things to me in such a way that I can know things for certain? Is it impossible?
It's not impossible, I guess.
Because it would line up with your worldview as well, like being agnostic, if you don't know. So you have now, because I wanted to be fair when I asked the question, you have now given me a possible avenue to certainty according to your worldview. But in my worldview, he reveals things to me in such a way I can know them for certain. Okay, that's the case. So in your worldview, I have possibility.
Yeah.
I have an avenue to certainty. Now, I want to ask you, what is, okay, how would you validate your reasoning about knowledge? How you get knowledge, truth? How do you validate your reasoning about anything? Just the conceptual.
It seems true.
It seems true.
It's like consensually agreed upon by everyone. Like there is a tree there. Yes, everyone. No one would disagree with it if it's true.
Okay, so let me ask you this. So you're appealing to other people, or maybe a consensus.
Human construct.
Okay, yeah, consensus of other people, man-made laws, man-made rules, and so forth, right? So here's my question to you. Do you have to employ your reasoning when understanding what other people are telling you?
I mean, I guess I can believe it blindly.
Because isn't reasoning the ability to come to logical conclusions?
Yeah, by myself.
So if you're hearing what somebody else is telling you, do you not have to employ your reasoning?
I would use my senses for that. Like I see the tree, I can feel the tree, so I think it's...
But to know it's a tree, because you said the word tree, that's a knowledge claim.
Yeah.
So you're using your reasoning even when you're dealing with your senses, correct? So you have to employ your reasoning when looking at something, hearing something, smelling something with your senses, right? So here was the initial question. When you're dealing with other people or society, what other people are telling you through your ears, your senses, you have to employ your reasoning when understanding what they're telling you.
Yes.
That's where we're at. So here's the problem. I'm asking you to validate your reasoning, but you're using your reasoning to justify your reasoning. Is that okay to have your rationality based upon a vicious circular reasoning? I mean, we're at a university now. It would be viciously circular to justify your reason with your reasoning, and we could both agree that it's your foundation of reason. You're saying I'm a rational person, but the foundation of my rationality is based upon circular reasoning. Wouldn't that be fallacious? Come on, if I said the sky's blue because the sky's blue. Would that be acceptable for you to know the sky's blue? Or would you say, well, there's something more scientific going on there?
Yeah, there's probably something more.
But it would be circular.
I can't explain.
Yeah, but wouldn't it be circular if I said that, though? And it would be like, well, yeah, this guy's in circular. It's illogical.
Yeah, it is circular reasoning, but
right.
That's like the bottom line. It's like, there's a limit to what we can reason, I guess. There's like a...
Okay, so with that, there's a limit, right? But for you to be rational, because we're trying to be rational, right? And rational, you don't got to go to university or college or high school for. We're just talking about, I'm a rational person, I'm making common sense right now, and you can tell if I'm, if I say, well, hey, that's not a tree, well, that's a camel, then right away, you don't need to go to school to know that I have illogical reasoning. So, would you agree that there's people in this world that have, that were born with brain deficiencies, people that are at funny farms, that they don't have the faculties, maybe their mom was on drugs and then they had some brain problems. Now, here's my question, and we're talking about being rational, having valid reasoning. How do you know, and I'm doing this with the utmost respect, because this is a question we need to come to. How do you know you're not one of those people?
I guess I don't.
Because would you agree that you would have to use your reasoning, and it would have to be valid to determine you have invalid reasoning, right? Yeah. So you could never know you're not one of those people.
True.
So do you see the problem there? Because it would be resting upon this illogical fallacy, vicious circular reasoning, in which you couldn't determine whether you belong in the funny farm or whether you're sane and come out here because you couldn't know it. So it's not the fact that you can't be logical, because you're logical every day, and you're at a university proving that you can be logical. But what I'm saying is the reason why you have logic, the reason why you have reason, the reason why you can know things to be true, isn't because your worldview is true about agnosticism. It's because the Christian worldview is true, because God is the precondition for intelligibility. So without God, you can't know anything to be true. So every time you open up your mouth and make a knowledge claim, I can ask you, is that true? And you'd have to say, I don't know.
But I mean, for me, like, specifically, why, like, couldn't the, like, Jewish God do the same? Couldn't the Muslim God or Jewish God or Hindu God be the same, like, step out of that reasoning?
But see,
couldn't they be the higher power that also gives, like, us reasoning?
It's a good question, but it's not the precondition for intelligibility that I'm talking about right now. Because certainly if there's more than one God, then there would definitely have to be more than one reality.
Yeah, Hinduism is off.
Yeah, definitely. You see, I mean, you're rational about that, amen. But look, if there's more than one God, we would have to, I mean, if we're dealing with the law of absolute truth, then certainly there can be only one God, because then there would be multiple realities. If there was two gods or three gods. And none of us could be rational then. But the fact that we can all be rational, and even if there's a group of people that disagree with common sense and rationality, we can say, hey, there's a group of people over there, they're crazy, or they're in a cult. We can say that based upon rationality, okay? Now, that concept, it doesn't exist in naturalism. It doesn't exist in Darwinian evolution, because we're just byproducts of a chemical process. And you don't get truth out of a chemical process, because you would agree that when we're appealing to truth, we're going outside of our reasoning, correct? So we're appealing to a standard that's higher than us.
I think evolution, like Darwinism, not necessarily Darwinism itself, but evolution can fit within Christianity.
It can.
Because, I mean, it's...
Survival of the fittest?
Yeah.
We don't agree with... We help the weak.
Yeah, no, we should.
That's contradiction.
But that's naturally... It doesn't happen.
But do you agree that Jesus healed the sick, he healed the weak? He didn't say, look, there's a bunch of sick and weak there. Hey, Darwinian evolution is true. Let me zap them with a bolt of lightning. No, they contradict. They're not coherent.
God could have created it all and then it evolved on its own.
But then the Bible would be a lie, because you would be holding to the precepts of the evolutionistic model versus the Christian model. And so the Christian model does not comport to the evolutionistic model. There's so many contradictions, but a lot of times on social media and on YouTube channels, they don't cover those inconsistencies. All you hear is what you may hear some about theistic evolution. A lot of people believe in theistic evolution. A lot of Christians believe in theistic
That's probably what I believe in, maybe.
But see, they don't comport, they contradict.
So why
and
not?
my question to you is, do contradictions matter in your worldview? Are they sound? Are they logical? Are contradictions logical?
Well, no.
Or are they illogical?
I think it would be Christianity be contradicting the Bible in that case is contradicting with evolution. It's not the other way. Yeah.
With Darwin?
Yeah.
So you trust Darwin?
I mean, I can see it. I can
But you see,
through the reasoning that God gave me, I can understand that evolution is real because I mean we can see it. We can see it happening today.
You can't see it. There's no proof of it.
Yeah, like elephants nowadays are being born without tusks because the ones
But
without
they're
tusks.
still no. That's not Darwinian evolution.
It starts to happen.
No, that's not Darwinian. Darwinian evolution is changes in species, not a changes in kind. You can have different kinds of elephants, but you can't have different. You can't have an elephant that turns into a horse, is born a horse. You know, 1 minute's an elephant and he bursts a horse or bursts a half horse, half elephant. That's what I'm talking about. Darwinian evolution is not true. It's never been proven. But what they do, they look at little changes in species, changes in their features. But that's not Darwinian evolution. That's just a change in a certain kind. It's not changes in species.
What in the Bible contradicts like the fact that can happen?
Well, you could go to Noah's flood and see that of every kind was put into the ark. So there are kinds, but a horse never becomes a half horse, half human. A monkey never becomes a half monkey, half human. That stuff doesn't exist. So what do people do? They look at the evidences. This is what we call presuppositions. According to your worldview, you look at the evidences and you take the evidences in light of your worldview, those are your presuppositions. And then what I do is I take the same evidence and I take them in light of my presuppositions. So there's nothing wrong with the evidence. There's something wrong with how you're interpreting the evidence. Yeah. So what if the monkey that you saw that they said was Remopithecus was a hoax? It was actually an orangutan. Would you still believe in it? Or would you just say, well, we'll just re-explain that as it's just a mishap? But all these other ones must be true. I mean, or would you be more critical about all the other supposed missing links, and then just be more critical about it? But a lot of times you won't find that. You'll just say, oh, look, they found this because the guy's a PhD, because he has an evolutionistic worldview, which is his presupposition. He's going to interpret everything he finds in the light of missing links in evolution, proof of Darwinian evolution. So what I'm saying is, to be objective, you have to take your presuppositions and say, are my presuppositions correct? That's where we're going right now. This is what we call presupposition apologetics. We're not talking about the evidence right now. We're talking about your reasoning to the evidence. Okay. So how do you know your reasoning about anything is valid? So you just said it's not impossible for the Christian God to reveal things to me in such a way I can know them for certain. Now this is what we call an epistemology. I have now proved my justification for knowledge, for logic, for reasoning, for truth. Now I want to know your epistemology, your justification for knowledge, logic, reasoning, and truth. So how do you validate your reasoning? And that's my question to you.
Okay, how do I validate my reasoning? I don't really, I guess I don't really need to validate it for myself.
You use your reasoning every day?
Yeah.
You're using it right now and trying to figure out how to justify it, right? So it is cohesive with reality, and the question that I'm asking, and it is an important one, because we're at a university, and if you say that you can't know anything, and that's what you're going to be saying, that if you don't have a validation for your reasoning,
I guess then I'm content with not knowing anything. Until it inconveniences me, until I say that's a tree and it's not a tree, I don't care, I guess.
But don't you find that problematic and contradictory in the fact that you're at a university saying that I'm going to learn this so I can know it, but I can't know anything?
But I mean, as long as it works. As long as it works and I have my job and I'm doing it right.
So I'm not saying you don't... Let me just rephrase it. Maybe it might make more sense. I'm not saying that you have a worldview where you can have a car and drive it, know how all the functions work on it, and use the stick shift or the automatic. You know how to use all it. The problem is you're living in a worldview that cars don't even make sense. And so, and that's problematic because it's inconsistent with how you live every day. It's inconsistent with how I live every day. And I'm saying that every single human being plumb lines, and I said this before, every single human being plumb lines into a standard of truth that only comes from the truth giver, the law giver.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's either, it could be God or...
No, I'm not saying it could be, it is. And it's absolutely true, because even when you make a claim, let's try this and I can show it to you. It's better if I can just show it to you. So, name one thing you know, and how do you know it? Let's talk about that tree right there.
Well, yeah, it's a tree.
It's a tree. So how do you know it's a tree?
Because, tree is just a word. It's not like...
It's a word that describes...
It's a word that describes what I'm seeing. So it looks like a tree. So it is to me like a tree.
So,
verbally, yeah.
But you were fed from
I
the
was
time.
told it was a tree.
Yeah.
Yes. I was told it was.
So there was a learning process
Yes.
of knowledge,
Yeah, for sure.
where you could. It's what we call the law of identity and the laws of logic.
Yeah.
So you got a law of identity right there, which you had to be taught.
Yeah, I took theory of knowledge in school. It's like a messy. We don't really know anything, I guess. That's
That's
really
why,
what it
but
comes
that's
down
why it's messy, because you're only getting the take of the evolutionistic model of how do you know anything. But see, we Christians don't fall into that category of the critical thinking and the philosophical classes you're taking in there. So we have a standard of truth that everybody appeals to, not only just average truths like axioms of mathematics, axioms of certain kinds of reasoning, but axioms of morality. It comes from God.
Yeah. No, I do agree. Morals wouldn't exist without God or higher.
But the God couldn't contradict. You would agree, because then morality would contradict.
Yeah.
So it has to be one true God.
It does have to be one God.
One God.
Giving our
So see,
morals.
we can agree on that.
Either that or there aren't any morals. But I mean.
So could we be fair to say, and I'm not wanting to put words in your mouth or anything. Could we be fair to say that logically you would have to backslide from agnosticism to theism, just based on that alone?
Well, I mean, I could just think that there's no morals.
But
If
if there was no morals, I would ask you, is it absolutely true there's no morals? And you'd still be appealing to a standard of truth that you can't account for unless you start with God. And so God is the God of morality. He's the one that puts morality into effect.
I think morals are like, it might not be obviously not absolute morals. There could be relative morals where morals have helped, like, evolutionarily, it helps us not to kill each other. So morally, we should not kill each other because it helps us.
Is that absolute? Because my question is,
absolutely, I think it does benefit the human race, evolution. If you think in an evolutionary sense, just in that way, I think it does benefit us to not kill each other because we reproduce, and every animal needs to reproduce. I think that's a moral. We shouldn't kill each other. And that can be explained through time. Or God. It could be either for me.
But wait a minute. So when you're appealing, are you appealing to say that there are subjective morals, but yet you're also including objective morality?
I think objective morality would have to come from God.
But do you agree they exist?
Objective morals? I don't think so.
Okay, now
I think it's mostly personal. I think a lot of people agree on the same, which is why we.
So it's right to kill people?
No, I think
depending on their morals. It's right to kill people. It's right to murder babies depending on their morals.
I don't personally agree with it, but to some people it might be right to them. But it's obviously
but you would be okay with you condone it. I'm not saying you personally do it. I'm saying you would be okay with other people doing it.
I wouldn't be okay with it because of my morals.
But that would be objectivity if you weren't okay with somebody else doing it.
But I wouldn't be surprised if other people have the same different morals than me. I don't personally agree with it. I think the majority of us don't agree with it.
So what about killing babies, and let me include for the fun of this.
Okay. I think some people might have the moral things that's okay. Yeah. Obviously, like Hitler and stuff, morally thought that was okay.
Right.
So, if his morals were truly passed down from God, I don't think he would believe that. I think maybe we differ on morals. Obviously, some people differ on morals. Some people probably think it's morally okay to have sex within your family, like in different tribes in the Amazon and stuff, but I don't think it's morally okay.
So let me ask you this. Because you're appealing to a standard of truth you keep plumb lining into when you're making these objective claims. Even about subjectivity, you're still dealing in a subjectivity in objectivity. Because if you say that morality is subjective, you're saying that it's objectively true that morals are subjective. See, so you would have to say that morals aren't subjective. So you catch yourself in a self-refuting loop. So morals are definitely objective, and in the logic and reasoning that we're dealing with that appeals to God, and you even acknowledge God in some of your claims, but you're kind of like a what if there's a God, then this would be. So I'm saying that there is a God, and you do appeal to him every day, even though you may not acknowledge him.
If there is a God, there are definitely objective morals from it.
Well, it's true that there's objective morals, because look, the fact that we live in a government that actually, it may not be perfect in morality, but the fact that there's laws against killing.
I think that could be nearly majority accepted subjective.
No, but we would have to agree that there's some things that are objective. Look, is murder subjective all the time, or is murder ever wrong?
I think it becomes.
Is murder ever
I think
wrong?
when it's 99% agreed upon, that can still be subjective. But I think at that point, it's more advantageous to consider them objective.
When is murder ever right? In that he gives the example of 99%. Because certainly
Okay, when is
0.1%.
murder ever right? I would say
I'm talking about murder, not killing. Murder.
murder. Okay, what's the definition of murder? Like
Murder
killing.
is like premeditated, like you're going to kill somebody for whatever reason.
Okay.
When is it ever right?
Let's say World War II, killing Hitler.
No,
I
not
think
wars,
that's
murder. An individual murdering somebody else.
I think it can be right in cases if they're a terrible, terrible person that's killed a bunch of other people. I think you can murder them.
I'm not talking about justice. I'm talking about murder. Say the guy didn't do
Murder
anything
can
wrong.
be justice. Oh, okay.
Okay, well, let's just give a hypothetical here. Say a woman's married to a man.
Okay.
She has an affair with another man. She wants to murder that man.
Yeah.
Is that wrong? Is that objectively
To
wrong?
me, that's wrong.
No, is it objectively wrong for everyone? For society, like, according to rationality, because rationality reaches every
I
human.
think it is. It would be considered wrong by nearly everyone, so it's probably.
So the ones that say it's not wrong,
Yeah.
what could we say about their reasoning? Could we?
It's flawed.
There you go.
They're a little messed up,
And
yeah.
see, and that's objectivity, and that's what I'm talking about right now. And I'm asking you, does that exist? And you just said it didn't, but yet every day in your life, objectivity exists because we have governments, we have rules, we have laws, we even have standards of common sense. We agree. We talked about that earlier. We can agree that there's common sense.
But murder's a pretty easy thing to like consider objective. There's some things like lying, like that's like very 50-50. Like sometimes it's wrong to lie all the time, and then sometimes it's wrong to lie about like a surprise party or
Well,
something.
I believe that lying is always wrong.
Really?
Even when it can be
Like a
justified,
white lie, like just like
it's
oh.
always wrong.
Okay, so
Always wrong. Because that's the Bible says lying is always wrong. And the Bible says in Revelation 21:8 that all liars shall have their part in the lake of burning fire and brimstone. Now, do all people lie, including Christians? Yes. So that verse can't mean that the moment you get saved, you can't lie anymore, you're going to hell. The verse means because they didn't trust in Jesus Christ, who paid for all your sins, that if you don't trust in Him, those are the works you're going to be tried by. The morality that we and you are talking about, and the morality is proof that you and I have no excuse. That's almost a GPS given by God to say, I've given you innate knowledge. That you know that I exist and that I am a God of holiness and righteousness, and that the requirement to be able to fellowship with me is to be absolutely perfect, absolutely moral. But you would agree none of us are absolutely moral.
Yeah, but like you shouldn't lie comes from the Bible. What if I don't believe in the Bible word for word?
It doesn't matter if you don't believe in it to whether it makes it true or not. I could get on top of this building and say, gravity doesn't exist and jump off. It doesn't matter. It matters what's true. Okay, so that's what's going to matter in the end. So when I ask you every truth claim that you're going to make right now, you're going to feel the standard of truth, which is the one true God.
But believing in God in the Bible requires faith, which is by definition not proven. Faith cannot be proven.
That's not right.
I mean, the Bible can't be proven.
Do you have faith in that claim that you just made? Because remember, if you're not plumb lining to God for truth, you're
But the
believing that by
Christian
blind faith.
God, the Christian God is proven by what? The Bible.
The Bible never says that Christian God needs to be proven.
I mean, no, but I'm saying like for me, to believe in the Christian God,
So, see, here's the problem. Your presupposition is you've got to prove to me that God exists. My presupposition is you already know that God exists. I don't need to prove it to you. Because the proof that God exists is that without God, you can't prove anything.
But the Christian God, specifically.
Right, the Christian God is what I'm
The
talking
Christian
about.
God, yeah, the Christian God. I mean, I don't think the Christian God has to exist. It could be a different God.
Absolutely not, because that's the God you're appealing to.
I mean,
The Christian God is the one you're appealing to right now to make your truth claim right now.
I mean, it could be another God.
Now, when you straw man another God, is he the precondition for intelligibility, for logic, truth, reasoning,
It could be.
and knowledge?
It could be a very similar God. It could be.
So you're not an agnostic.
I think it could be. There could be any higher. As an agnostic, there could be any higher power. Yeah, I think. Okay. Yeah, as an agnostic, I'm not in the boat where it could either be nothing or a God. I think it could be any God.
But you don't know.
No, I don't know. I don't know what the Christian God.
So you undermine every knowledge claim you make, even when you're trying to have an opinion about it.
I think if I believed in any God, I wouldn't know.
Right. Well, the one true God is the only one that the reason why any other God you wouldn't know is because they're not the precondition for intelligibility. The only one that's a precondition is the one true God.
Why?
Why? Because I just said it. The proof that God exists, that without God, you can't prove anything. Your worldview becomes absurd.
For God is a very vague term. I mean, that doesn't necessarily
But see,
mean...
you can't say that because you're appealing to a standard of truth right now. What is truth according to your worldview? Does truth correspond to reality? Do you agree with that assessment? Truth is what's real? Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
Truth corresponds to reality? Okay, so truth corresponds to reality. Now remember, we're talking about truth corresponding to reality. Now, how do you know what's real? Now watch out when you say you don't, because we're dealing with truth right now.
Yeah.
So how do you know what's real?
How do I know it's real?
We just talked about that tree over there.
Did I see it? Yeah, I plot.
But you have to employ your reasoning.
I do, yeah.
And how do you justify your reasoning? Justify your reasoning with your reasoning.
Yes.
You can't know that
Yes, there has to be a higher power to get you out of that. But I don't think it's necessarily the Christian one.
But your worldview is left to absurdity if you're not appealing to the one true God, the necessary precondition. If you go appeal to another God, it's not the necessary precondition. Your worldview is still left to absurdity.
I mean, why can't there be another God?
Well, because truth is absolute, that's why. And God is the God of truth. He's not the God of lies. He's not the God of contradiction.
But if I don't... That's a circular reasoning, because you're saying we know God exists because God exists.
Well, I'm not denying there isn't a circle, but I'm going outside of my reasoning to do so. You're stuck inside your reasoning like a hamster running in a wheel.
I mean, I think it could be any other, it could be any
Now,
God.
see,
It might not be.
There
might be literally no. There might be no God in the religion that exists on it.
But you don't know that. And that's the problem.
I don't know
You're
the
making
Christian God
you
is
don't
true
know. So you undermine every claim you make, even in opinion. So here's the circle that we deal with as Christians. Look, I justify my reasoning outside of my reasoning, even though it's circular. And God revealing things to me in such a way that I can know them for certain. And you actually acknowledge that.
God
That's a
hasn't
possibility.
God hasn't revealed to me that He is the true God.
He already did. He already did.
To me?
Because you just made a knowledge claim just now. Is that true?
Why can't
Is that
a
true?
different God do that?
What's that?
Why can't a different God do that?
Well, because your worldview is left to absurdity. Because he's not the precondition for intelligibility, as we just said before. The precondition for knowledge, the precondition for truth.
A different God can't be that?
No, it can't.
Why not?
Because God is the one that reveals that. And you know it. You already know it. He's placed that innately within every human. So to deny truth is to be left in absurdity. And you're not absurd on just one plane. Like you justifying your reasoning with your reasoning, as we said earlier. You're circular on every knowledge field, every knowledge field. So I ask you, how do you validate your memories? You got to go to your memories. How do you validate induction? You got to go to induction. You got to look back at induction. I said, how do you validate the scientific method? You got to use the scientific method. You have no way of knowing anything to be true.
I don't think any of this proves that it has to be the Christian.
It absolutely does.
I don't see
It
how.
absolutely does. Well, how do you know that? Is that absolutely true?
What?
What you just said, is that absolutely true?
Is that I don't know how. I don't know which God.
Yeah. Is that absolutely true?
It is true. I do not know.
But you don't know what truth is.
Yeah.
Because you just said you justify reason with your reason. So you don't know. So you undermine your claim when you don't start with God. But I'm telling you, every day you know things to be true. Every day you use truth.
What if I
every
start
day
with a
you
different God? If I start with a different God, I say
your worldview is left to
some other
absurdity.
God. How?
Your worldview is absurd. You just said some other God. You just said you make it up, or I'm using some other God. But we're talking about the God that everybody already knows exists. That's why the Bible says you're without excuse. You're without
There's a
excuse.
lot of religions that don't know that.
Prove to me that air exists.
I'm reading.
Well, that's not proof. You're just using a pragmatic argument. I want to know, prove to me air exists. I can't see it.
I could prove it if I had the proper scientific tools and stuff.
I don't think you could prove it. I don't think even with your tools. See, that's what you're doing right now to me. You're saying, I really don't know God exists. If you can't prove it to me, all the while you're making knowledge claims. Because I'm not saying you don't know things, I'm saying you do know things, which exposes your pre-commitment to God. Every time you make a knowledge claim, even if it's an opinion, even if it's something subjective, I can ask you, is it absolutely true that what you said is subjective? If you have no way out of absolute truth, and I'm telling you, you're appealing to the one true God and you know it, but you hold the truth and unrighteousness. You say, I don't want to acknowledge the one true God. Even though I know he exists, I don't want to acknowledge him. So it's called a suppression of knowledge.
I think a God exists, not necessarily not the Christian God.
Is that absolutely true? And you can't
It's
know.
absolutely true that God exists.
Is that absolutely true?